First off, this is the small gold-filled. How do I know it's gold-filled? Simply because I have done thousands of watches. I have opened thousands of watches, and I know what they look and feel and should look like. And more often than not, you just aren't going to see a small watch like this made in solid gold. This is a very small, considered a woman's. They also call them watch fobs because they're so small they would wear them around their neck on a pendant. This is antique. It's probably early 1900s, and you can tell the age of a watch by its serial number. First off, how do you open it? That's the important part. That's sometimes the hardest part. You see this watch, it's not worth a lot. It has a few dings on the back. It no longer works. It still has the glass, but it can't be wound anymore. And there's no such thing as an overwound watch. That's a misnomer. It's just something inside is preventing that from unwinding, so it's stuck. Okay? This is a small watch, not worth much. I wouldn't pay much more than $10 to $12 for a watch like this. So just be aware that that's about the running value of a non-working, small ladies' gold-filled watch. Now, how you open it is that there's only a few tools you need. Okay? There's only a few tools you need. This is a watch case opener. It just has a nice wooden handle. I use a file, a couple of files, and I use mainly one screwdriver. One size screwdriver. Screwdrivers come in many sizes. You know, you can find a whole watch. I just buy them used. And I listened to a video once where a guy said that you only need one screwdriver, and he's exactly right. You can do 95% of what you need to do with a watch with a single screwdriver. It's usually a size 0. Size 0 is usually the best size. I know this is what it is. It's just a used screwdriver I found on a lot. And you can buy them new, but the older vintage ones, this is not vintage, but the older vintage screwdrivers are probably better made than anything modern you can get. Okay? You don't need much. You only need a very tiny screwdriver. And this is different than an eyeglass screwdriver. It's specifically meant for small watches. And this is a case opener. It's not sharp. It looks sharp. It has an edge, but it's very dull. Because if it slips, you don't want it to cut you. Okay? If you use a knife, more than likely you are going to end up with a deep gash. This is actually a watch case opener. It's just something to kind of slide under the edge of the watch. And most watches you open from the back. Very few watches would you open from the front. I only open a front of a watch if I can't get the back open, and that does happen. The smaller the watch, the skinnier the watch, the harder they are to get to open. A large watch like this are relatively easy because there was plenty of room for all the mechanics. There's less tolerance needed to fill it with the watch movement and have everything work properly. So a larger case will be easier to open. Just general tip. Okay? So I'm back to opening the back of this small watch. Okay? I stick all you're really doing is just trying to pry that so that you can, it's just a wedge. You're just wedging. Can you see that the watch has a slight flat area right there? Most often it's at the top right, an area, and it's probably intended for people who are right-handed. I've not hardly ever seen that edge, extra edge for you to be able to put in a small instrument to pry it open on the other side. It's usually always on that right side. Okay, what do we have inside? We have the movement. We have, lots of fun things to do. But the problem with this one, it is so small. It is so I wouldn't recommend starting with this if you've never done these watches. these are very hard to work on just because they're teeny tiny, okay? So that's basically how you open a watch, okay? That you will notice, see if it has hinges. If a watch has hinges, you know the back can be opened, okay? But look at the front. The front, it looks like, it looks like it might possibly be openable, but you aren't sure, okay? You will have to open that too. You will have to get that front off. It's harder. Watches were made so that the back is much easier to open than the front. It has a hinge for servicing. The front is usually not taken off unless severe, really repairs by a experienced watchmaker was needed. Okay. If you'll see this watch, also just to show you, it's called a transition watch. It was made in between the time pocket watches were no longer made, and people were starting to wear them as wristwatches. You see the small loop on the bottom, and the loop on the top allowed a person to have a strap and to be able to wear it as a pocket watch or as a wristwatch. And its small size allowed it to be an early wristwatch.